Welcome in. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Hello and welcome everyone to Childcare Aware of Minnesota's October 2022 Tell Talk. Today we're joined by Angela Kapp for part 2 of the 2-part series on takeaways from the book From Survive to Thrive, A Director's Guide for Leading an Early Childhood Program by Debbie Lee Keenan and Iris Chin Ponte. Angela is the owner/director of the Learning Garden and Midwest Child Development LLC, and we are so glad to have her back with us today. Tell Talks, or Topics for Early Learning Leaders, are monthly webinars for early childhood program leaders to facilitate solutions-focused discussions for your questions about the early childhood field in Minnesota. These 1-hour webinars do not meet the standards for a formal professional development training event, and participants will not receive a certificate of completion. Tell Talks are designed as a community building opportunity for leaders to engage and share ideas surrounding a specific content area. The Tell Talks team consists of Nikki Lepowski, Quality Improvement Coordinator, and myself, Christy Berg, Workforce Advising Coordinator. Nikki's unable to be with us here today, but one of the other folks on our team, Katie Hoffman, is joining us. And we also work with Corey Woosley on the Tell Talks team to bring you these webinars. A couple of our recent topics have included using Teach scholarships as a retention and recruitment tool, and implementing anti-bias and anti-racism practices in your program. Next month, Chelsea Klein from Childcare Aware of Minnesota will join us to talk about one of the exciting new capacity building initiatives, Empower to Educate, which focuses on supporting current and aspiring early childhood educators advance and sustain their career goals in childcare. Please visit our program leaders page on the Childcare Aware of Minnesota website to view previously recorded Tell Talks. After today's presentation, you'll receive an email from me with the PowerPoint slides and any other resources shared. Childcare Aware of Minnesota supports the professional growth of early childhood educators with professional development opportunities on our Eager to Learn online training platform, as well as grants, Parent Aware, and scholarships. We are a resource and referral network for early childhood education in Minnesota. We assist families in finding a quality childcare program and keep the community informed on the importance of quality childcare. Childcare Information Services is a department within our organization that specializes in statewide information sharing and assisting families who are looking for childcare. CCIS sends a welcome packet to new programs and surveys programs every 3 years on business policies and tuition rates. The rates are confidential and can influence CCAP reimbursement rates. CCIS receives calls from program leaders across Minnesota with general business questions and will route you to the appropriate person to contact. Childcare Aware partners with Center for Inclusive Childcare, which provides free RBPD, including support, modeling, and resources for childcare programs throughout Minnesota. A coach will spend time with your program, providing support focusing on the successful inclusion of children with challenging behaviors or special needs, implementing health and safety best practices, and supporting the unique needs of infants and toddlers in your care. Achieve, Minnesota Center for Professional Development, supports individual, trainer, and RBPD membership applicants and approves courses and training events. The Achieve MNCPD website has several resources to share, including a free job board, policy info, Minnesota Career Lattice, and a virtual career guide. The Tell Talks team partners with several organizations to offer coordinated resources surrounding early care and education needs. As always, participants of Tell Talks are encouraged to ask questions, make contributions throughout the presentation, and engage in dialogue with our presenter. We would love Tell Talks to be interactive, so if you would like to turn your camera on and you're comfortable doing so, please do. And feel free to unmute to share your ideas and questions. You can also use the raise a hand feature if you'd like. And the chat function is available for those who would like to put their questions or comments there. We are recording the Tell Talk, and we'll send a link to the recording in the follow-up email. So now I'm excited to turn it over to our presenter, Angela Kapp. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me. And I'm sorry, you guys, if you're coming back and I had to reschedule. I'm sure some of you are going through this in your program where you're going through a little RSV or colds or all that kind of stuff. And that's what I caught. So I'm feeling better, not quite 100%, but I'm happy to be here with you today. So those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome. My name is Angela Kapp. I'm from Midwest Child Development. I do training and consulting under that umbrella. And then I also own 2 centers, one in Maplewood and one in St. Paul called the Learning Garden. And we serve infants through preschool. And I'm just so excited to be back with you guys today. So I wanted to do a little recap of what this session is about. So this book, which is getting used and turned by me, From Survive to Thrive, was very dear to my heart when I am looking for inspiration or just need a kind of little, you get kind of down and doing the same thing and you have to look, what could I work on in my program? And this has been a great guide for me. So I wanted to share it with you all. It's a book from NAEYC, which also has the Code of Ethical Conduct, which we use in our program. And of course, anti-bias education is also a big influence in our program as well. So I wanted to share those documents with you today. So in part 1, we went over what does it mean to be a director? We talked about program context and culture. We talked a little bit about achieving and maintaining program quality, which I wanted to do a little plug. I am doing a session at the MNACE conference in February on achieving and maintaining program quality. So hopefully I'll see some of you there. And then budget and finances, we went over a little bit in the last session. So our reflection question at the end of the first session was, what is the one piece of advice, a resource, or a tool that you would share with a new director? So you can enter your response into the chat if you'd like today as we go through the session, or you're more than welcome to raise a hand and Katie or Christy will interrupt and call on you to share your story or your piece of advice with us all. So is there anybody that has something they want to share right away before we get going? Nothing in the chat yet?
We do have a comment now. It
Okay.
says, don't be afraid to delegate tasks when needed. You can't do everything.
Yes, that is a hard one to learn if you have a specific vision and you're afraid to let go a little, let other people in. So delegating is a hard thing to learn how to do. Anyone else?
Hire an assistant.
I bet you that was from Ashley. Was that Ashley?
That was Beth.
Oh, Beth. Okay. My assistant is on here and I thought, oh, she's going to pump herself. Yes. You need a good assistant.
We also have take your days and your tasks one at a time. Don't try to do everything at once. Multitasking is not all it's cracked up to be.
Yes. I in our first session, we talked about that, about prioritizing and getting yourself organized and just do what you can do in a day. Don't overwork yourself. Well, I hope those keep coming in throughout the session, and Christy or Katie can help us read off a few more as they come in a little bit later. So the next slide, what we're going to hopefully go over today, and we don't run out of time, is staffing and managing enrollment, which we had hoped to do in the first session. So those are going to be coming up next. And then we're going to talk a little bit about program curriculum, observation, assessment, and documentation. But I'd really like to talk about working with families and partnerships and collaborations with you all. And throughout this presentation, kind of what I'm doing is I'm reviewing the sections and the highlights out of the book, but I'm including my own stories and things that we've done in our programs and what has worked for us and what hasn't. So I think we all can learn from other people, right? And so I hope to learn from you all today, and I hope you might be able to learn a little something from me today as well. So staffing, I bet you everyone was excited to talk about staffing and how do you manage staffing? I have no easy answers for you. I was just sharing with Christy before we got started that I have been the infant teacher for the past couple of weeks in one of our programs. We've had some turnover and we are having a really challenging time finding teachers to, especially for infants and toddlers. Preschool, we have a little better luck, but infants and toddlers staff seem to always be hard to find. So I thought I'd share with you some strategies here in a little bit about what we've done for staffing. But when it comes to staffing and caring for your employees, you have a lot of responsibilities. I mean, look at this big long list. So you have to create a staffing model. You have to schedule your staff. You have to interview and hire. Onboard and orientating effectively is really key to retaining your staff. Making sure that you're doing ongoing training, that you have some retention strategies in place. Supervising itself is a big responsibility, especially right now when we have so many folks new to the field who need a little bit of extra coaching and support. Managing it all, mentoring and coaching, evaluating and supporting your staff. So that is a lot of responsibility, and it oftentimes just starts with you. So you have to have a good plan in place. Excuse me. So I love this little quote, either run the day or the day runs you. So in my first session, I talked a lot about, getting yourself organized and kind of how I start my day by just planning what I'm going to be doing for the day. So I look at my scheduling and I say, okay, where are the holes? What time do I have to do my administrative work? And when do I need to be in the classroom? And when it comes to strategizing, I was telling Christy today to get on the session, I had to pull out all the strings because I'm technically supposed to be in my infant room right now. But I pulled my education coordinator in, so he's teaching today. And then I have a staff from my other location coming over to do the breaks. So, partnering with another program for subs, I'm fortunate that I have 2 programs and we can kind of go back and forth, and staff are willing to go back and forth. But if you can find a program that wants to partner with you, you can
Angela, are you still there? It looks like you might have frozen on our end here. Oh, I think she did. Let's just give her a minute or two to hop back on, reconnect.
Thanks for saying something, Katie. I wasn't quite sure if it was my
Yeah.
internet.
Right. Well, I panicked for a moment too, because mine went out just a little bit ago. So
Oh, yeah.
it looks like she kind of fell off entirely here. So let's log back on in a minute.
Yeah, that makes me feel like she's aware that it happened. Sometimes you could keep going
Yep, you
and
just keep talking and
Yep.
yes. All right. Thanks for your patience, everybody. We're going to try to get Angela back here just a minute.
There she is.
Oh, you're still on mute, Angela. Welcome back. We're glad to see you.
sorry.
No,
Never fail. Something technical has to happen, right? So yeah, I don't know. I just lost my internet out of nowhere.
We're glad
So
you're
were
able to
you
get back.
guys, are we on there on the right slide, right where we left off?
Mm-hmm.
And everybody can hear me. I am so sorry. So we were
Yeah.
talking about strategies for staffing when you're short, right? So we were talking about how I was sharing staff with other programs or partnering with programs to come and help. adding administrators to the staffing pattern. And I know that in our program, that's been a struggle because a lot of times once our administrators get to that point of being an administrator, they have a hard time going back to the classroom. So we have to set our expectations to know that the children come first, and that's our priority, and to help them understand that that's an opportunity to model for our newer staff, to share ideas, sing a new song, or share a finger play with a classroom. And we can, when they see you in the classroom and they know you're willing to do the work, it goes a long way with staff retention. Clarify and communicate expectations for maintaining ratios and combining at the beginning of the day. If you have that teacher that says it's 4 o'clock and I'm out of here, that's something you need to talk about maybe upon hire, and say, you know, yes, I'm going to do my best to get you out every day at 4 o'clock, but there may be a situation or a case where I need you to stay a little bit later. So in our program, we had to send out kind of just we sent out a survey and said, who wants some overtime? And so that we could ask those people first. And then we said, who has limitations? Maybe they have another job or children to pick up from school or transportation issues, which makes it a hardship to pick up extra hours or help us out. So just knowing who we can count on to help us out with the coverage was really helpful in our program. Like I mentioned, today we had a teacher come over from the other program to help us out with breaks, and she had transportation and she was willing to do that. And then another thing that we've done in our program is we provided wage incentives for those hard to fill positions. So sometimes you might end up with, like, you have a hole in the morning from 6 to 9 and maybe 3 to 6. Maybe that person gets a little incentive in their wage to do a split shift, or if you're having trouble finding an opening or a closer. So those are some things that we've done. And then track your arrival and departure times for the families. So making sure that you're staffing accordingly. In my infant program, for example, I have two infant classrooms, and the 4 kids are right away here at 6 a.m. and then the rest all come at 7:30. So in order to be prepared, I kind of like to have that other staff here at 7:15 so they can get that classroom open and ready. So just knowing your program and what's happening in it so that you can staff appropriately. Does anyone have any other strategies or feedback on anything that I mentioned today on staffing? I don't see many faces, so it's hard to tell if some people might just continue to be working and listening.
And nothing in the chat, but I can put a prompt there. So in case folks come
Okay.
back.
We all could use the help, right? So any tricks or tips you guys have, we're happy to take. So it always starts with hiring great teachers, and the book has a lot of information about where to start. So to think about how you can identify what's important to you. What kind of teachers do you want to hire? Do you need those teachers that have a lot of experience? Do you need those teachers that are just starting out that you can mold and shape and help grow your program? Do you need those teachers that are flexible and can work any hours? Do you need the ones that are dependable, who never miss a day? What are the qualities that you really, really want in your employees? And then make sure you craft your interview questions so that you can find out if those are important qualities to that staff. For example, we just did an interview and we talked about one of the questions we asked is, what is your biggest pet peeve? And somebody said, I hate when people call into work. So that was a big indicator that they were a team player, right? That they rarely called into work, and that led us to that discussion. So that was a quality that we really admired, that they were wanting to come to work every day. Another thing to take a look at is your pay structure and benefits. In the past, we used to be interviewing employees and we would pick the best of the best. And I know that at this time, we're hoping to just get them in the door and get them in for an interview. I think my assistant director had 7 interviews yesterday, maybe only 1 showed up scheduled. So that's pretty disheartening. So we're selling ourselves more than anything right now. So what are you going to be able to offer your employee? So some of the things that we try to highlight when we're interviewing our employees is that we do paid prep time outside of the classroom. Most of our, at our Maplewood location, we have a desk or a teacher area for them to put their curriculum materials and for them to work at. They have each classroom has their own area. They get free uniform tops. They can eat meals with the children, so their meals are free. All the training that they need is free. We help with CBAs, so we'll pay for that. So if there are things that you can offer your employees, we can't do health benefits at this time, but maybe a childcare benefit works for them. So just really taking a look at what can you offer a potential employee. And then why should they come and work for you? Do you have a good vision? We talked about our program culture and our program organization, the atmosphere and culture of your program. Is it a great place to work? And if not, then we're going to have to adjust that so we can retain some staff. If staff are drained and feeling like you're not available, you're going to just keep having that turnover issue. Anybody have any comments or thoughts about hiring great teachers? In the book, it talks a lot about making the right hire and not just hiring like, oh, you're willing to come in, you're willing to work. Because that person who you hire who may not be the best fit isn't always what's going to help your program. It might help in the short term, but in the long term, it can turn off those long-term employees that have been with you through everything. So make sure you hire right. All right. Any other questions, comments before I move on?
Nothing in the chat right now.
Okay. Whoops. So we kind of talked about this already, but identifying the qualities, crafting your interview questions, reviewing your pay structure, and then why should an employee? I guess I kind of have a duplicate slide there. So now you have them in, and now you need to retain them. So the first thing you need to do is make sure that each staff has a comprehensive orientation. I remember a couple of my first times at jobs where we were so short and they just threw me in. Can you just go in here right away? And I was really turned off by that. I was like, I have no idea what's going on. And luckily for me, I'm the type of person who asks questions and figures things out. I'm a problem solver, but you might not have that person in their room, and that might just scare them, and they might not come back from lunch or the next day. And that has happened. So I really believe that a good orientation is key to retaining employees. There's a great book that I also have, Staff Orientation Guide. Sharon Bergen, I think, wrote that one. You guys shaking your head. Yeah, some of you might know that one. I love that book, and I use that as a guide when we're doing our orientation for our employees. So we plan out a whole day of orientation, and we don't start until about 9 or 9:30 when I know that everyone's in their place and staffed and I'm not going to get interrupted, or my assistant director has the time to meet with them. And we really pay attention to that employee for that block of time and make sure that we're answering questions. Show them where the bathroom is, show them where they can put their lunch, make sure that they know where they can put their belongings, they know where to park. All those little things can cause anxiety for staff if they don't know those answers to those questions when they come into your workplace.
Angela,
Thinking about, oh, go ahead, Christy.
sorry to interrupt. What was the name of that textbook and author that you
I think
mentioned?
it's Sharon Bergen, and it's staff orientation. Ashley, if you're on, maybe you can pull that up, and I think she has, it's in the library where she's at. She maybe show us the book. Thanks, Chris. I'll put it in, if I can get it later, I'll put it in the chat. And then allow for that work-life balance. So, you know, yes, me as an owner of my own program, this is my work, my life, right? I love this program. I'm here whenever on the weekends and doing things, but this is not everybody else's life. This is sometimes a job or a career. And so I have to be considerate of that. So they are going to have school events for their other children that they want to go to, doctor's appointments, families that they want to visit and go on vacation with. So we need to make sure that we allow for that work-life balance, and we are understanding of that. And so that you have some kind of system in place for employees to take time off or request time off. Supporting children or teachers with challenging behaviors. A lot of times staff leave because they don't feel supported. They don't feel like the administrators care about what they're going through in their program. And sometimes we expect that, like, yes, you'll just figure it out. But sometimes these newer teachers need a little bit more support. And even our experienced teachers could use a break once in a while for somebody to come in and say, let me just take over and go take a break, right? Relieve the stress of a stressful morning. Another thing that we found that is helpful is if you follow through. If you say, I'm going to get that book for you or that material for you, or we're going to meet and have a one-on-one, or whatever it is that you tell them and you don't follow through, they learn not to trust you. And so employees need to have trust in their supervisors. Be fair and approachable. Does it appear that you favor some staff over others? I've had to have this conversation with staff before because sometimes staff will come in the my office and hang out on their break and just talk. And to other staff, that looks like I'm maybe favoring them. But I have to let them understand that that's what they need from me at that time. That might be the only time that they're able to come and talk to me about things. And so I'm available, and that you are always welcome to come in and hang out. You know, some staff just want to take their break and get out of the building and not be around. And so we talk about that. There's different people need different things. And then making sure that you're supporting professional development and advancement. I've had several employees come to us after working at another program and say, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that training was available, or I didn't know about Develop or how to find a training on Think Small. And that really made me sad because I really hope that everyone in our field is continuing to be a lifelong learner and getting the support they need to further their profession. So make sure that staff have opportunities and professional development available to them. You can be an administrator and not be a trainer. I happen to be a trainer, so my staff get a lot of training. But if you're not a trainer, then you need to figure out how to match that up, how to connect. So either connect with another organization like Think Small or Child Care Aware, SEED, or whatever it is to get the staff development that they need. And then communicating effectively. That is one thing when we've done exit interviews with staff that they felt like they weren't communicated with. You never come down to our classroom and tell us what's going on. I always have to hear from other people the news first. That really can go a long way if you're communicating effectively. For just a simple example, when I left today to go home for a lunch break, I went around and told everyone, I'm running home for a lunch break. So-and-so's in charge. I'll be back at 12 o'clock. So I communicated with everyone so they knew I just didn't leave and didn't know who was in charge. And it's just a simple thing like that. Some people don't care. They're like, oh yeah, I'm just doing my thing here anyways. But other people, that made them feel comfortable knowing that they knew where I was and how they could get a hold of me. Any other thoughts and suggestions about retaining great teachers? I think my assistant would say, make sure your candy jar is full, right? Our candy jar has to be full.
Not seeing anything in the chat, but maybe someone's typing, who knows?
Okay. All right, so I want to think about professional development. I mentioned before that, you know, we want to cultivate that growth in our employees, right? So the first thing is buy-in. Why is it important that you have professional development? And I can see where this can go wrong if employees are attending professional development that doesn't fit them or isn't useful to them. For example, a lot of times the infant teachers get put in professional development courses that are geared towards preschool teachers, right? Then they get discouraged. Why am I here? Why am I attending? So when I develop training, all-day trainings, I'm thinking about that as I'm planning our program, our development. If I need to have a separate training at the same time for just my infant and toddler staff, then we will do that. So we want to make sure that they understand that their professional development is meaningful. We're not just doing this to get it done, but we're doing this so that it can support you. So making sure that you're pairing up your training to support those folks. Encouraging peer observation. So one of the things that we're implementing this year in our program, and we'll talk about this when we talked about program quality, but we're using the Cello tool, and we'll be having peers go in and use the tool on another classroom and sharing their feedback. And we think this is a great way for those folks to build teamwork and build their partnerships together to be like, oh, you know what, I have this idea in my classroom. You could do this, you know, sharing that with each other. In the past, we've done center visits to other programs so they can see other programs that are doing things great, or other programs that they come back and they go, I would maybe do it this way. And then it creates a good discussion for why we do things certain ways. A book group or a professional learning community. So I recently was in 2 different professional learning communities. One was on mental health and one was on curriculum, observation and assessment. Pardon me. And it was a way for me to kind of really just reflect on our practices. And so you could create that within your own program, right? You could create a professional learning community. Maybe you're going to have them all read a book, a specific book, and talk about, maybe you're trying to decide on a curriculum, which curriculum to use. Maybe you're going to have everyone research different curriculums and come together. Providing opportunities for teachers to plan together. So we've done where we've had our team meetings at night, and the half hour before they start, have just the lead teachers come and do just a lead teacher meeting if we need to get that in. Or we might step in for some teachers, our admin team, so that maybe some teachers can meet together and do some planning. And then get in the classroom. Like I mentioned before, there's nothing more powerful than walking the talk, right? Them seeing you in action. I have this resource up here, Power to the Profession. And I believe next month's TEL Talk is stemming from that to the Profession. And you can look that up at powertotheprofession.org. But it's all about helping our employees realize that we're not babysitters, we're not just caregivers, that we're educators. And so really bringing that professionalism, that buy-in, is why it's important for us to continue our training and education in the field.
Angela, we did have a couple comments come through in the chat in the last couple minutes. We had a reminder it says, don't forget to thank your employees, especially when they're extremely flexible and help wherever needed. And then another comment, also talk up employees to each other. Speak positively about staff, especially when there are challenges. Focus on everyone's strengths.
I love that. I love that. One of the things that I did at our last team meeting is I gave $5 gift cards to everybody who came on time, because we couldn't start until everybody got there, right? Because we're trying to do introductions and start our day with a team builder. And so I wanted to acknowledge those people that came on time. So things like that, acknowledge when they're doing what they're supposed to do, right? I love that though. Yes, thank them all. I do that all the time. All right, maybe not often enough to some of the staff I don't see at my other location. So I wanted to talk a little bit before we get into like this section addressing performance issues. I wanted to talk to emotional development domains. And you might thinking, I thought we were talking about grownups, but sometimes the grownups we are working with aren't all fully developed in some of these emotional domains. And we have to think about that and consider that a little bit. And if you think about, we're hiring some really young teachers, maybe starting out, a lot of those self-regulations, executive functioning skills haven't fully developed yet. And so we can get a little frustrated, like, why don't they think like me? Excuse me, 1 minute. Sorry. So think, if you go through your employees and thinking about where they are in their emotional development domain, do they have the ability to influence others? I have a couple teachers I can think of in mind who really, when we have team meetings and trainings, they really get each other going. They really support and validate each other, and they really have the ability to influence others. So if we're introducing something new, I always try to get their buy-in first, because I know that they'll help that. Do you have someone who's really able to understand the feelings of others and to model that? To model, like, well, maybe this is how they were feeling, and maybe that's why they did that. Just having that ability to show empathy and not allowing own emotions to affect others. Those people that come into work and leave all their home problems at home, that they're really able to regulate and say, I'm at work now, I need to just turn that off. And that's a skill that sometimes takes a little bit of work. So I just wanted to kind of bring the slide up. If you type in emotional development domains, you most likely will get some resources like this. There's a couple books out there about this. I think it's a fascinating topic when it comes to working with adults. All right, so now we're going to address some performance issues. So the first thing we need to do before we address any issues is make sure that we have set clear expectations for staff performance. If staff are coming in late routinely and no one's ever said anything to anyone about it, and you've never mentioned it at your staff orientation, and if you never saw what the consequences of coming in late, you've never discussed it, then they're not going to think it's important. So you have to clarify your expectations. So for example, when we do our orientation, we have a call-in little handout that gives the phone numbers of who to call and then what to do. Like if you're going to be late, this is who you call. Please don't tell a coworker. There's nothing they can do about it. It puts them in an awkward situation. And we have this conversation about what to do. If we never had that conversation, I would never be able to address tardiness, right? Because there hasn't been an expectation for that. So if there are things that are common issues in your program, you could clarify those expectations at this time. So for example, using your cell phone for personal use is a common one, leaving the classroom often to go to the bathroom. And to me, that's a sign that either they're bored, they need some other way to, they've been in the classroom too long, they're looking for that next step up, that next responsibility, or maybe they're just not that into their job. So, but look at those, if you're having any issues, make sure you set those clear expectations and then you follow them going forward. Because if you say you're going to, I'm going to collect all the cell phones and then you don't, then they're going to keep doing it because they don't think you'll follow through. Once an issue arises, make sure that you, again, communicate and clarify. Like, I noticed you were 15 minutes late today. Remember that we have everyone call their supervisor when they're going to be late. Here's a copy with my phone number on it in case you need it in the future. But it's really helpful to me to know if you're going to be late, so I know if I need to go into a classroom or I have to postpone a meeting or whatever it might be. Document, and then document some more. So you need to have, it's just like when you're working with the children and you're documenting their progress, you need to have information about the employees. So at one point we had pulled up a staff's time card and realized that over the course of a year that they had taken a total of maybe like 6 weeks off unpaid because they called in. So they didn't feel like they were calling in a lot, but when you put it to them, like, you had 6 weeks of vacation, most of us get 2. So when they saw that out on paper and saw that documentation, they went, oh my goodness, I didn't realize, right? That's an extreme case of waiting a really long time to bring up something, but sometimes that documentation can help clarify the expectations too. Provide the employee with written communication about the issues and the steps they can do to resolve the issue. So I noticed that you're 15 minutes late, every day. Can you tell me a little bit more about your morning routine? Is it a matter of transportation or you're not getting up in time? And if it's something like, well, I have to drop my daughter off at 9:10 at school, and so by the time I get here, it's not usually till 9:40, then maybe your expectation, maybe you can change it. Maybe it's okay for them to come at 9:45 every day. So just understanding the situation, or if it's just they're not organized and they're just not valuing our time or our ratios or whatever it may be, then that would call for, additional, this is what we need you to do. If it happens again, conversation, that type of thing. And the book does a really nice job of talking about, performance, writing up performance issues and documenting. Sometimes, and there's the case where that person is just not the right fit for your program. And you need to let them go before it impacts a few things like your reputation as a program, your staff morale. If they're seeing somebody get away with something all the time and it's not being addressed, the rest of the staff kind of get down, or the climate of your program. If it's not a happy, fun place to work because people aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, that can really challenge your program. I always say, make sure, like those of you who aren't working for yourself or you're working for another program, that you find out what your program's policies are on hiring, on documenting performance issues, written warnings, and things like that. I worked at an organization which they had a union, so that became a separate issue. So I always say, one of the things that you need to do is clarify what would happen if X, Y, and Z happen. If you see a person doing this, or if they're coming in late, make sure that you're aware of what your organization wants you to do. Questions or comments about that section?
Nothing in the chat yet, but I did put a prompt there. So if along the way, if anyone has other ideas on addressing performance issues, go ahead and throw them in the chat.
Yeah. And one of the things we like to do is at the bottom where it says, we'll write up our performance issue and say, this is the incident. This is the policy or procedure that was violated. This is what we want you to do in the future. These are the support tools that we're going to implement. So maybe you're going to go back and watch a training on supervision. Maybe you're going to go back and reread our policies and procedures in that section, whatever it might be, so that you're covering yourself as well. If you know, we are an at-will state in Minnesota. Someone can leave your organization for no reason, but if you are going to terminate and you don't want to pay the unemployment tax and fees that come along with that, documenting and knowing that they were given the opportunity to improve and that you documented whether they did improve or whether they needed continuous reminders or written notices and things like that. Unemployment will ask those types of questions, what you did to help that employee be successful. All right, so we're going to change the topic now to managing enrollment. And how are we doing on time? Got about 20 minutes. Okay. So one of the things in the book that it really talks about is do your market research and who is your competition. So finding out the programs around you and maybe how much their tuition is. Obviously, we're always going to use that as a selling feature where our tuition is, is this compared to this. What's included in your tuition. For example, our program includes diapers and wipes. We don't have any curriculum fees. We only do one enrollment fee. We don't do an annual fee. All the field trips, everything's included so that we aren't nickel and diming our families to death. That is something we chose to do, and it's a huge selling feature for us. It gets a lot of families enrolled into our program. What is your program's reputation? So finding out what's on your Google reviews, what's on your Yelp reviews, what's being said about you in the neighborhood pages. And pardon me for 1 second, I just need to do a little cough. Excuse me. And then another thing I like to do is when our families come in or inquire about us, send us an email or go off our website, how did you hear about us? So that I can know what's working. Did they find us on the Parent Aware tool? Did they find out from a coworker? Did they see us driving down the street and saw our sign? Did they see our teachers at a park playing with the children and engaging really greatly? Like, what are we doing really well? And then making sure you're clear about your program's mission and philosophy so that you can sell to that. If you're a nature-based program and you do a lot of gardening, like we're trying to lean that way a little bit more. We're not there yet at all, but that's something that we're adding in a nature playground. And those are things that we talk about during our tours. And one of the things that I find really amazing is that a lot of programs don't have a website. And when you Google a program, the first thing they're going to do is want to go to your website to see more information. And so if you don't have a website, I would really look into it. I did our own. It's nothing fancy. I went on Weebly. I don't think that's a good one to do anymore. I wouldn't suggest that one. I did that 10 years ago. But I loved it because it was really simple for me to use and I was able to do my own. I didn't have to hire anyone. But if you don't have a website, I mean, you're really limiting yourself because a lot of people will just move on to the next program where they can find out more information and call them from the numbers that are showing up on screen, looking at the pictures and the information, looking about your curriculum, your hours, things like that. And then consider social media. We're not on social media as much. Our programs do have a Facebook page, but I rarely use them anymore. Our programs are full with a waiting list, so I haven't had to do a whole lot of advertising. It's mostly word of mouth and the fact that when they Google us, we're close to their neighborhood or on a bus route or something like that. But word of mouth is a big one. Anybody else have any marketing or advertising, recruiting ideas that they've done in their program?
Sarah made a comment in the chat about Squarespace working great for websites. It's very intuitive.
Good. Yeah, we're kind of looking to maybe switch our thing, but I have such a good deal. I'm afraid to go anywhere else. 10 years ago, when you get a good deal, right? It's hard to change. All right. So do you know your future openings? So I've seen where I've had tours come in with maybe an infant and say, they don't have room for my child when they move to the toddler room. And that really always shocks me because I don't know why a program would want to lose a family because they don't have an opening in the next age group. So are you planning to retain those families? And so one of the things, now that I'm mostly at my Maplewood site and my assistant is mostly at my other location. We each just do our own thing. We're tracking openings, and I have a whiteboard that I track. But we do have a shared Excel document. So if that's something that you need to do, you have several people that need to know that you can use an Excel document, or maybe your tool like ProCare that we're using or something like that to plot out when your next openings are. And, every state's different with their ratios and what children can be combined with what. So in Minnesota, we have to figure that out. Like at 16 months, they can go here, and at 33, early as 31, things like that. And so I have a big whiteboard where I track, and it says like my next toddler opening is not until February of 2023. So I need to make room for all those infants that are coming into toddlers. And so by the time I have my next opening, that's when that will be. So just knowing that funnel, like you're going to, somebody's going to inquire, and then you give a tour, and they're going to want to know, do you have an opening? And then when they want to start, and how are you going to make that work? And then what does that do to kind of your whole system, like as you have kids come in at different ages? So just really being on top of that, and then being creative when you have dilemmas. So one of our dilemmas at our other program is we have 2 toddler rooms and 2 preschool rooms. And a lot of times we've had the case where all of our toddlers age up into preschool, but we can't move them because we have too many preschoolers. And so what are we going to do? So we've worked with our licensor to make that an and/or combo. So it can be a toddler preschool combination, and we keep the 1-to-7 ratio, or it turns into all of a sudden now it's all preschool and we do the preschool ratio. So being flexible or creative when you have those dilemmas, like you don't have room for kids to move up, how can you adjust your license if you need to? And they're really flexible. Licensing has always been flexible with us to be able to do that, to say not to exceed so many infants, not to exceed so many toddlers, so that we have that flexibility when we come into that situation. And that happens about every 2 years for our program over there, because, the preschoolers stay in our program for, 3 years, 2 or 3 years, and then the toddlers need to come up before that time. First Children's Finance has some great tools. This is kind of I did a little screenshot of their Busy Directors Quick Marketing Checklist. You can go on there. And so I love that first one. Are your mission and vision, are they relevant and known by the staff? So if I was to walk around and ask my staff, what's our mission? Would they be able to say it? I hope so. But things to think about: your physical visibility from like the road or busy streets. Do you have open houses? Are you using any kind of print? Are folks hearing by you mostly by word of mouth? Your website and your social media use. So this is a great little list. All right, my biggest thought when it comes to enrollment is to get them in the door. So from the time they send me an email, do you have any openings? My goal is to get them in the door the next day. Do you have any openings? Yes, we do. When would you like to come by for a tour? Well, tomorrow. Do you have any time tomorrow? Yes. What time tomorrow? And I always make it work. So I want it because I know if I get them in the door before that other program calls them back, they're more likely to enroll with me. So get them in the door. So we schedule tours when it works best for the family, but we also offer suggestions when they would see the teachers in action. So for example, oh, you're looking at our toddler program. Well, our toddler teacher leaves at 4 every day. Is there a way you can come before 4 o'clock so that you can meet her? We've done some virtual tours over COVID, and so that might be an option. I saw another program the other day has every week they do a live tour through their program at a certain time. So you can put that out so people just can hop online, watch you walk around with your camera and introducing the classrooms and showing them around your building. Excuse me once again. I always make sure I tell my staff when tours are coming, so that I'm not startling them, sneaking up behind them when they're reading a story, something like that. And sometimes I will take over for them reading the story so that they can talk with my tour and share some information about them and their classroom. And that seems to be work really well towards selling our tours as well. And then don't be afraid to sell. A lot of people don't want to sell, but that's what you're doing, right? You need to say, so what are you considering? Have you toured other programs? What's going to be the deciding factor? And so that maybe you can share more information. If they're like, well, the current program, the one that we're leaning towards, you know, and maybe I can say, well, our diapers and wipes are included, so that could be a factor. Do some follow-up, send a thank you or an email. We had our fall festival tonight. So all my families that have been inquiring, I've been inviting them to tonight's fall festival. And it'll be a great opportunity because they can meet other parents. And a lot of times the other parents will sell your program for you too. Any other thoughts, questions? Okay. So one of the sections in the books, the chapter talked about curriculum. And I'm not going to go a whole lot into this because this could be a whole 2-hour training in itself when we talk about choosing a curriculum. But I wanted to go over some of the highlights that it's talked about in the book. So some things to consider before choosing a curriculum is your mission and vision statement. Does it align with that? Does it align with your philosophical beliefs? Do you believe children learn by play? Or do you like more teacher-directed activities? What are the requirements? So licensing has some requirements about the areas that we need to include in our classrooms. And if you look on the equipment list for the different ages, you'll see those requirements listed on there. Are you able to find teachers that match your curriculum, that have worked with your curriculum before? The curriculum that you choose, are you going to need a lot of time for staff development and training? And are there resources to support that curriculum, meaning funds or materials, things like that? So there's all kinds of curriculums. There's those packaged curriculums, so things like teaching strategies, creative curriculum. There's play-based, emergent curriculum. So you see where there's themes, you can pick a theme. Reggio, Waldorf, Montessori, project-based, all of those different types of curriculums. So what works for your program? What speaks to your program? And so over the last 10 years, our program has kind of been all over the place with this. We tried some packaged curriculums. We tried some ones that already have activities and everything done out for you. And now what we lean towards is more an emergent. Like, what do the kids want to learn about? It's more children's based. And we're using high scope curriculum. So we ended up doing that because I was a high scope trainer and I had access to materials, but not everybody does. So you have to pick something that works for your program. If you're looking at cost, that's a big factor as well. If you need to buy a bunch of materials or training books, things for the staff, that might influence too. Think when it goes to, I didn't have the resource on here, but when you go to parent aware curriculum, they have, just like I'm going to show you with the assessment one, they have a whole different list of different curriculum types that you can look through, and they've given you the publisher and information about it, kind of an overview. And it's just a great tool if you're trying to decide on a curriculum that you would like. All right, so we're just going to talk briefly about observation, assessment, and documentation. And there's 3 things that we use that for, right? What works on our program and what doesn't. So when we're looking at our overall program, we're using observation and assessment for tracking children's development. And we're using observation and assessment for teacher performance, so teacher evaluations. So when it comes to program assessment, we talked a little bit about this when we did the maintaining program quality, but looking for maybe a QIRS, so a quality improvement rating system, like an accreditation or a parent aware rating. You could also use parent and staff surveys. So what's coming up on the surveys that we want to assess about, and you can determine those questions to what you want to find out more about. I mentioned that in our program, we're using the Cello. Now that we've done parent aware and gotten our 4-star ratings, we want to really look at our literacy. So we're using the Cello tool. You can look through your licensing and health consultant reviews and see what things are coming up routinely that maybe we need to improve upon. So if we're missing medication is a big issue, or healthcare plans, maybe that's something that we want to train on or improve on. Or you could do focus groups. We've done that in the past in our program where we've had assigned different groups. Somebody worked on safety, somebody worked on curriculum, somebody worked on materials and equipment. We talked about just coming together with some goals for each of those areas. So you collect all your data and then you have to make an action plan, right? Just like you would for the children.
Angela, we have a couple comments here. or
Okay.
A couple questions. Sheila is wondering if she could connect with you after the training. She's got a high scope question, and I wondered if
Oh.
maybe I could put your email address in our follow-up email if you'd
Yep,
be
and
comfortable.
at the end, I have it as well. Yep, Angela@MidwestChildDevelopment.com.
Perfect,
Yes.
thank you. And then the other question is, do you have a teacher evaluation you'd be willing to share? Sarah says she hasn't been able to find anything that works for her.
Yes, and actually how I did ours is I took it off the, oh my goodness, the knowledge competency framework for teachers from the Minnesota. So ours is based on that. It's quite long. I'd be more than happy to share it. If you want to email me, I will send you over a copy. It is a Word document, so you can edit it and do whatever you want with it. I'd be more than happy to share. And yeah, I give those to all of our employees when they start, and I say, here you go. These are our expectations. And then we do a 3-month, a 6-month, and an annual evaluation. And a lot of times we might just focus on one section because it is quite lengthy. So a lot of, and my aides who might not be doing curriculum and things like that, they skip over that part, and that doesn't count in their rating. So they don't, when we tally up points for annual reviews or something like that, we don't use that, but I'd be more than happy to share that.
Thanks, Angela. We do have about 3-4 minutes left here.
Okay, good thing I'm close to the end. Final stretch, we're gonna get it all in. So when we talk about children's assessments, again, I shared those parent aware approved assessment tools. You Google that, you'll come up with a great big document that lists all those published assessment tools. A lot of programs will just do simple portfolios, works just as well. I mean, you can use those. You don't have to purchase something. But I am an approved trainer with work sampling and high scope. So those are the two that I'm most familiar with. And I use Teaching Strategies Gold for many, many years in my career. So I'm very familiar with that. We've tried Funshine in our class, and I've seen OWL and Life Cubby. So those are some of the published ones that I wanted to kind of share with you. But there are all kinds of children assessment tools. When it comes to teacher observation and evaluation, this is where I was going to talk about that performance evaluation tool that we use, but make sure you have that uniform practice so that everyone knows what they're going to be observed on. They're clear about the expectations and that you're consistent with everyone. We do a lot of teacher observations. So before the observation, you might meet with them and talk about like, what are their goals? What do they really want us to focus on? And then during the observation, to make sure that you're attentive, you're not checking your phone, emails, that you're really recording and documenting what's happening in the classroom. And then make sure that you do a follow-up, meet face-to-face and share their strengths. Don't focus on what they can work on. And I know that it's really hard for some of us to come from a strength-based perspective, but if you can get to what they do well, you can weave that into improving their classroom practices. So I had a brief working with families, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about what we do in our program as far as getting to know families and involving them in learning and development. So I always say it starts with the first contact or tour of your program, asking the families what they're looking for. If they're looking for a highly regimented curriculum with worksheets and things like that, we are not the program for you. So I want to make sure that they're clear about what our program is about. And then we talk about how they work with the teachers to develop goals and that every child is on their own path. So some children might be working on social emotional goals, some might be just potty training, some might be working on relationships or sharing. So we talk about that, how everyone's different. We have an orientation meeting with our families before they start or within the first 10 days. And so the administrator will do half and then the teacher will do half so they can get to know the family. Find out their contract preferences, with dad or mom the one to call, name pronunciations, so you can call them by their first name. Plan for their first day so that somebody's there to welcome them and get them settled in. Ongoing communication, so share what your system is, whether it's email, phone calls. We use a ProCare Connect app. When you do teacher conferences, they can have a conference anytime they want, but these are the typical times. And then the center events like the one we're holding tonight that we really hope that they come in and participate. Sorry, my nose is starting to run a little bit. Managing conflicts with families. This book had a really nice section in there about that. So if that's something that comes up often in your program and you want to learn a little bit more, the big strategy that they talked about in the book was acknowledge, ask, and adopt. So acknowledge what the situation is, ask lots of clarifying questions, and then adopt some kind of practice that kind of solves the issue or is satisfactory to both parties. And I'm going to speed up a little bit because I want to talk about partnering within your communities. This wasn't in the book, but I thought it was something that we try to do a lot of in our program. So a couple of the partnerships that we have include St. Paul Schools. So we're a St. Paul Schools early childhood partner. We have been for about, I think since 2015 or 16, something like that, which has enabled us to have great resources. We've had them come in and screen our children for early childhood screening. I think right now my Hamlin location is getting ready to do a visit out to some kiddos that have went off to kindergarten, check in on them, see how they're doing in partnership with St. Paul Schools. We've collaborated on trainings. They came to our building and conducted trainings where our staff got to participate. We've had beginning of the year meetings where we've had our St. Paul School coach and coordinator, our Center for Inclusive Childcare coordinators, our parent aware coach, and then our own internal coaches all meet and come up with a plan so that we're not like duplicating, so that if maybe somebody's working more specifically with challenging behaviors, maybe our parent aware coach can work more with curriculum, things like that. So get in touch over here at Maplewood. We're new to the area. I reached out to the local school. So we have 3 children in our preschool room with speech needs. Can you share some ideas and resources? They got right back to us, shared some things that we can do. Partnering with local colleges and universities. So not only for finding staff, because you can find some part-time staff too, they're working around their college coursework, but to do other projects like our community garden or setting up for events, different things like that. They have one of over at Hamlin location, the Hamlin University was helping to plan our nature playground. Partnering with local businesses such as a coffee shop or print shop. So maybe the coffee shop gave us a discount when we ordered from some staff meals, and then we put in some of their flyers into our program. So different things like that. Partnering with other childcare organizations such as CICC, Parent Aware, Fraser, that type of things. Using parents as resources. So one of our parents is a police officer. So he just had a police car visit at both of our programs, brought that out there for the kids to see. We've had parents come in and show, we had a parent that does pottery, and they came in and showed how they create pottery. So taking advantage, and we asked that on our intake form. Do you have any skills or resources you'd like to share with their program? Working with churches or community groups. So we've done National Night Out with the churches that we lease our space from. We've done festival and markets. We're doing trunk or treat with the church over at Hamlin and St. Paul Schools on Friday. So lots of different things that you can do with your community. And then Hamlin Midway Elders is over at our Hamlin church. And we did a Christmas program with them one year. And that was the sweetest thing. The children sang with the elderly, and they just got the biggest thrill out of that. And we had lunch with them. And then senior meals, having meals with them, helping with different things going on with the seniors. So I think I'm nearing my time. Am I getting close, Chrissy? I'm over. All right. I wanted to share, these are some resources that I've taken advantage of. Last time I mentioned that they were starting the Directors Toolbox group, and that got canceled. And I was so disappointed because there wasn't enough participants. So hopefully they'll reschedule that and we'll have some more join. But that's when we went over these books here. And then the Visionary Director is another book that I've used quite often. And Christy had already mentioned a lot of these resources in the beginning. When you get the PowerPoint, I've listed some of the resources from that book into the PowerPoint. And then if you're looking to sharpen some of your director skills, Childcare Aware of Minnesota, offering the director's credential, and First Children Finance had their fall sessions start back in September. So if you want to look them up, see what sessions you'd like to join, marketing, all kinds of things they have. Final thoughts, and here's my email.
Thanks, Angela. I'll be sure to include a little more information about the director credential too, which courses are included, the cost, things like that, and when we're anticipating our next one to start, which will hopefully be January of 2023. So if folks want to get added to our email kind of waiting list, I can take email addresses down if you just want to reply to my follow-up email. So this was great. Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you guys all for sharing all your strategies with us. I got a couple new ones I'm going to put in my my list here. I'm excited.
I love it. Yeah. Thanks to everybody for contributing ideas and questions today. Angela, thank you so much for your expertise and sharing all that great information from the book.
Yes. All right. Thank you guys all for having me.
Yeah,
Feel free to reach out.
sounds good. Take care, everyone. Have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.